on the top. We'll start from Amar Rava, which is 6 lines down. We learned an interesting machlaikas. This is 72b, 6 lines down. We learned a machlaikas Abaya and Rava regarding if someone intends to cut something that's not attached to the ground, and by mistake he cuts something that's attached to the ground, which means he harvests. So Rava said that he didn't intend to do an isser. That's called masasik. Let me just differentiate between masasik and shegig. If someone forgets that it's Shabbos and he does a certain malacha, he harvests, let's say, so then he brings a chatas. He forgets that it's Shabbos, or he forgets the malacha zasa. That's a regular shegig. If someone does something that he doesn't intend at all for that action, he intended to lift something from that was not attached to the ground, and by mistake it ended up catching his finger and he tore something out of the ground. So then that's called masasik. He's pater. He's not a shegig because he didn't intend for the action at all. It's not that he intended for the action, but he didn't know that it was asur. He doesn't know. That's a shegig, and that's when he's chayev. Here, it's called masasik. He was involved in something else when this happened. What's common? Someone by mistake turns the light on. He walks into the bathroom, he turns the light on. He walks out, he turns the light off. That he intended to turn the light on, he just wasn't thinking. He forgot it was Shabbos or whatever. Okay, so that's a shegig. Someone slips on the floor and he ends up banging the light. So that's an oinus. Here, he was reaching for the towel. He ended up turning on the light. That's masasik.
So the proper use of words is masasik, not shegig?
Yeah, we're switching. We're differentiating between masasik and shegig here. Mm-hmm. So masasik is pater and shegig is chayev. The question is if someone does a malacha with the intention to do the act, but not the forbidden act. So Rava says that's pater. The example over here was he intended to cut something that was separated from the ground, but he ended up cutting something that's attached to the ground. And Abaya says he's chayev. Abaya says, look, he intended to do that action. What's the difference? If it's an isser action or a heter action, the action was intended. Amar Rava, that's where we're going to start. Amar Rava, mina, how do I know this? How do I know that you're exempt if you intended to do the same action, but not the forbidden action? As Rava says that a forbidden action is different than a permissible action, to the extent that as if you had no intention for that. Yeah, I'm trying to get to the what's the exact difference between Abaya and Rava, like what philosophically, what are they think? I looked in some svarim. I have this sort of like a modern sefer, Abaya and Rava. He tries to tell me all different views between Abaya and Rava. This one is a socialist, this one is a capitalist, this one is this one is a Rebbe, this one's a Rosh Hashiva. There's all types of ideas. Anyway, ultimately it boils down that Rava looks at things more simply and Abaya is more complicated. That's the way he says, because Abaya is a student of Rabbi. Rabbi was the Iker Harim. And Rava is more of a student of Rabbi Yosef. That's the way he puts it. I don't know if that's accurate, but Rabbi Yosef was more Sinai. Anyway, over here, it would just be simply he doesn't intend to do the forbidden action. In other words, he didn't intend for this action. There's a difference between a forbidden action and a permissible action. Rava says, where do I know this from? So the Tanya. Now, we just want to point out that to get to Rava's proof, we're going to need to get to Daf Ayin Gimel. There's a very long discussion. He's going to quote a brisa. There's going to be a very long discussion on what the brisa means. It's going to be a lot of suggestions. Doesn't mean this, doesn't mean that. Finally, on Ayin Gimel, on the next page, we're going to get back. We're going to be able to say, oh, that's what Rava's proof was. And then Rabbi is going to say, well, it's not such a proof. So, okay. It says, where do I know this from? The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Chaymer Shabbos mishar mitzvahs. Shabbos is stricter than other mitzvahs. Chaymer shar mitzvahs mishabbos. And other mitzvahs are stricter than Shabbos. And we'll give examples. Chaymer Shabbos mishar mitzvahs. Shabbos is stricter than other mitzvahs. Shabbos aser shtayim behelam echad. Chayav al kalachas v'achas. Very interesting. If you do two malachas with one forgetting, let's say forgetting, not forgetting that it's Shabbos, but forgetting, even forgetting that it's Shabbos, you'll still be chayiv too, right? Someone forgets that it's Shabbos, he's considered a shogeg. Did you say, no. Then he would only be chayav one. So it must be he's forgetting that the malachas are forbidden. So he's chayav for each one. With other mitzvahs is going to be different. The Gemara is going to need to explain why and what's exactly the scenario. Other mitzvahs are more strict than Shabbos. Shebishar mitzvahs shagag b'lei miskaven chayav mashenkim b'Shabbos. When it comes to shagag b'lei miskaven, he does it by mistake and he doesn't have intention. Then by other mitzvahs he's chayav, but not for Shabbos. Now Rav is going to use this. We don't know what it means yet, but Rav is going to use this later to tell us that it's talking about his case, that you're going to be pater when you intended to cut something that was detached from the ground and ended up cutting something that was attached to the ground, which is called harvesting, and you're still going to be pater. That's what Rav is going to say from this. Amar Mar, the master taught, that means that we're going to re-examine the brisa that we just quoted. The brisa just did a contrast between Shabbos and other mitzvahs. So we have to figure out what is that contrast. Shabbos mishar mitzvahs. Shabbos is stricter than other mitzvahs. Shabbos aser shtayim behelam echad chayav al kalachas v'achas. Because if someone does two malachas, he's chayav for each one. Mashenkim b'shar mitzvahs, but not by other mitzvahs. The Gemara says, hey chidami, what are we talking about over here? Comparing Shabbos to other mitzvahs. Shabbos you chayav two, other mitzvahs you only chayav one. Eily medavar k'tziru tchina. Let's say he does two malachas. He harvests and then he grinds the grain. The kavasega b'shar mitzvahs, what would that be comparable to other mitzvahs? He does two averos, right? Achal chelev v'dam, he eats forbidden fat, and he drinks blood. So hachatarti mechayev, hachatarti mechayev. You chayev two. Chayev two for Shabbos, you chayev two for other mitzvahs. That's not a contrast. That's the comparison. It's the compare and contrast. This is the similarity. That's not a difference. Elashar mitzvahs, so then what's going to be your case? Where you have other mitzvahs that you're only chayav one, other averos rather, you're only chayav one. Dachal chelev v'chelev. Okay, it must have been that you ate twice chelev. The helam echad, right? And one forgetting, you didn't know that it was chelev, the forbidden fat. The kavasega b'Shabbos. The same thing must apply to Shabbos. The ovid ktsira, where he does two harvests. So the Gemara says, hacha chada mechayev, hacha mechada mechayev. So then by Shabbos also you only chayev one. So again you found a similarity, not a difference. The Gemara says, loilam david ktsira tchina, must be that you did two malachas. You harvested and you ground. Umay mashenkim b'shar mitzvahs. So then, what does it mean that it's different by other mitzvahs? By other mitzvahs, the last case was that it was forbidden fat and blood. But that would also be too. The Gemara answers avodah zarah. It's referring to avodah zarah. Well, what's the din by avodah zarah? Ukad rabami. We quote this Gemara in Sanhedrin that says, that if someone does different services, different ways of worship to Avodah Zarah, he slaughters an animal, he brings incense, he pours wine, all in one forgetting, he's only chayav one. So it's all one worship of Avodah Zarah. If it's all in one forgetting. So what is the forgetting? We have to see. What is he forgetting when he's worshiping Avodah Zarah? How are you establishing this? About Avodah Zarah. So you're saying we're comparing Shabbos to Avodah Zarah. That Shabbos, if you do different types of work, you chayav two. In Avodah Zarah, you do different types of worships, you chayav only one. Ema Seifa, if that's the case, then we have to have a parallel in the Seifa. The Seifa is the end of the Brisa. We said Shabbos is stricter than other mitzvahs, which means Averis. That Shabbos is stricter than Avodah Zarah, Chayiv too. So now we had in the Seifa, we also said that other mitzvahs are more strict than Shabbos, which is Chaymer b'shar mitzvahs. There's a strictness in other mitzvahs. B'shar mitzvahs shagig b'lei miskaven chayiv. If you do it b'shogeg without intention, you're still chayiv, and by Shabbos you're pater. Mashenkin b'Shabbos. So, hay shogig b'lei miskaven da avodah zarah echidami. What's your case where you didn't intend by other mitzvahs that you're going to be chayiv? We're talking about now that what are the other mitzvahs we're referring to? Avodah zarah. What is the not intention by avodah zarah that you're chayiv? Eily mekasaver beis hakneses. What is he not intending for? As we're looking for b'lei miskaven, that it's a type of misasik. Is he didn't intend to do this act. What's he doing though? So he must think that it's a shul. B'shtachavela had a nice big bell, whatever, had a dome. He thought it was a shul. So he bowed down. Turns out it wasn't really a shul. He saw the yarmulke on the priest. He thought it was a rabbi. So, but harei libi lashamayim. So yeah. So, but that's not an aveira. That's not. He's not chayav over there. He intended for Hashem. He wasn't bowing to an idol. Ela dechaze yandrata v'saigla. Must be that he saw a statue and he bowed down. Statue is like a statue of an emperor. So, which the emperors used to consider themselves gods as well. So, hechidami, what's going on over here? Ida kibla ala belika. Was he accepting it as a god? And he bowed down to the statue. So, mesidhu. That's not a shaygig. He's chayav because he did it on purpose. That wasn't intentional. Ida kibla ala belika. And if he doesn't accept it as God, then lav klumhu, then it's nothing. Then it's just respect, whatever. People bow out of, it's not just bowing as a cordial greeting, but it was a respect. It wasn't a God. Elami avir, it must be that he bowed as a worship, but he didn't do it because he actually believes in it. He did it because he was either someone was forcing him or someone that he loves wanted him to do it. So he thinks that this is not really intentional because I'm doing it for a third party. So well, this happens to be a machlekes if someone does this. It's a machlekes Abaye and Rava. Abaye says that he's chayiv. So, okay, now we have a contrast between Shabbos and other mitzvahs. We said other mitzvahs is more strict in this instance. Shagag b'lei miskaven is chayiv, and Shabbos is going to be pater. Rava damar pater, but Rava that says in Sanhedrin that if someone does this, he's pater anyway. So you don't have the contrast. So what's going to be the difference between Shabbos and other mitzvahs? Ela ba'imer mutter. It must be that he thinks it's permissible. Mashenkin b'Shabbos the pater legamri. Well, I have to read that as a question. Mashenkin b'Shabbos the pater legamri. Omer mutter means we need two cases. because in order to have a comparison or a contrast, we need to have everything the same except for the detail that we're contrasting. So we're comparing we're contrasting the Shabbos Daf Zara. We're talking about Shagag B'lei Miskaven. He's doing something unknowing, that's not unintentional. Now, we gave possible examples that he was bowing down, maybe because he thought it was a shul. He was bowing down because he thought that he wasn't bowing down really to the idol. He was bowing down because someone wanted him to do it, and he was doing it for this other friend that he has, or he was afraid of someone. So the problem with that is that that's a machlekes, and some say that that's pater. We wanted a case where that would be chayav. So he said, well, maybe it's Eimer Mutter. Eimer Mutter is he never knew that this was forbidden, so that's why he's a shaygig. So what doesn't he know? Shabbos, maybe he doesn't know it's forbidden. Well, how does he not know that Avodah Zarah is forbidden? Rashi tells us that he became a convert, and they didn't tell him that you're not allowed to worship idols. It says, Niskayer ben Anachrim. He converted amongst non-Jews. I don't know how he had a bezdin there, but somehow he got the conversion done, and he doesn't know that he's not allowed to worship idols. It's very interesting. See, he's called a Shagag B'lei Miskaven. He worships idols, but he doesn't know that it's not allowed. So now we say, 1 second. So by Avodah Zarah, he's going to be chayiv. But by Shabbos, he's going to be pater. It's not pater, he's a shagig as well. Not pater legamri, he still has to bring a carbon for that. Look, if you remember, you go back to our Mishnah. We said if someone doesn't know that the malachas are aser, or we had another case, someone that doesn't know the concept of Shabbos. So we asked, Rav had a question from Reb Nachman. Let's say someone doesn't know both. Doesn't know the concept of Shabbos. He doesn't know, and he also doesn't know the malachas. So is it going to be chayiv 1? Is it going to be chayiv 2? For each Shabbos, we had a question over there. Which one is the significant not knowing? No one said avapat legamri loy, and no one said.
I don't get that. I don't get that thing that he doesn't know Shabbos and he doesn't know any malachas, because if you don't know Shabbos then you don't know any malachas. That's
right. That was the Gemara. We said maybe we should bring a raya from the Mishnah that it's clear in the Mishnah that you only chayav 1, because we had the first case in the Mishnah was kol shechechech Shabbos. He's only chayav 1 chatas for everything.
I'm thinking on the simpler level. If you don't know Shabbos, then you don't know malachas.
Right. So that should be a proof that if you don't know both, you don't know Shabbos, you don't know malachas, you should only be chayav 1, right?
Right.
That's what we asked. That's what we asked when we were learning this. This was Ayin Amid Beis. How did we answer that? Helem zev biyadai. Mahu. So Rashi says maybe you could bring a raya from the Mishnah. You should only be chayav 1. So yeah, you're right. If he never heard of the concept of Shabbos, then he doesn't know the malachas as well. That Gemara over there, Helem zev biyadai, means that he doesn't know that today is Shabbos, and he also doesn't know that the malachas are aser. The Gemara says that the way Rashi puts it is b'yedei ikar Shabbos av malachas halalu eina yedei shasuris v'nela mimenu shehayom Shabbos. He doesn't know two things. He doesn't know that today's Shabbos, and he also doesn't know that the malachas are also. That was a question Rabbi had from Rav Nachman. Should you be chayav for each malacha, which that's what happens if you don't know that these malachas are also, or should you be chayav only one, which that's what happens when you don't know that today is Shabbos and you do many malachas. So which unknowing is the stronger one here? That's a question Rabbi had from Rav Nachman. So now we're trying to say that if someone doesn't know the concept of Shabbos, so no one is suggesting that you should be patel legamri. There was a possibility if it's one or two or whatever. There's different types of sheikhech. I hear Yossi what you're asking, because the comparison here is not a comparison to Rava. It's a comparison to the other part of the Mishnah, which that wasn't Rava and Rav Nachman. A very good question. Very interesting. There's this kasha on the way Rashi answers that. Okay, whatever the case is, the Brisa was comparing Shabbos to Avodah Zarah, let's say, or to other mitzvahs. He said that you should be chayev by other mitzvahs, but not by Shabbos. But by Shabbos you chayev as well. The Gemara answers, we're on top of Ayin Gimel, Elalav Reisha Bakum V'Sefer B'Shar Mitzvahs. Reisha Bakum means Reisha. At the beginning was talking about a comparison between Shabbos to Avodah Zarah. Akum is not Ovid Kechavim, but Avodas Kechavim, worship of idols. That we said that on Shabbos you could be chayiv two, and by Avodah Zarah you only chayiv one, because all the worships are joined together as one worship. And now the Sefer is Shar Mitzvahs. And what is the Shar Mitzvahs? So what's the case? The Saver, the Shumanhu va'achlu. He thinks that it's Shuman and he eats it. And he eats it. So over there is going to be chayiv. He's eating chaylev. He thinks it's kosher. Mashenkin b'Shabbos the pater. What is he doing? He intends to cut something that's separated, and he ends up cutting something that's attached. See, this is Rabbi's proof. That's what we started with, and today I said that it's going to be a little while till we get to the Rabbi's point. The source, what's Rabbi's source? Is finally the source is over here. That we're trying to compare Shabbos to other mitzvahs where he's intending to do the same action. He's intending to eat. It's not that he wasn't intending to eat and it fell down his throat. He's intending to eat, but he was intending to eat something kosher. On Shabbos as well, he's intending to do the same action, but isn't the action a kosher action, a permissible action? And he ended up doing a forbidden action. And you see he's pater. The Brisa clearly said, by other mitzvahs he's chayav, by Shabbos he's pater. Rava says, I have a good proof that it's considered misasik if I didn't intend for a forbidden action. Rabbi, what does Abaya do with this? Rabbi says you chayav by Shabbos if you intend to cut, even though you didn't intend to cut something that was attached. He says shagag boy miskaben echidami. That's not the case. It's not the case where he thought it was kosher, the fat was kosher, and he ate it. The savar raiku bali. He had somehow the fat was in his mouth. He thought it was saliva. When you swallow saliva, it's not considered eating. You don't have to, I guess, on Yom Kippur, I don't know if you have to spit it out, saliva. It's not considered eating. Maybe there's a chumrah. I don't know. It could be there's such a chumrah. But from this Gemara, it would seem that this is not considered eating. And so it's not that you intended to eat. See, this is what Abai is doing. It's not that you intended to eat, but you thought it was kosher. You didn't even intend to eat, because swallowing saliva is not eating. It turns out that no, it wasn't saliva; it was fat. So he ended up eating. So what's going to be the comparison to Shabbos? Mashenkin b'Shabbos, where over there is going to be pater, the pater. Then it's coming like biasatalish v'chatzachasam pater. You didn't intend it all for the action. You intended to lift something that was not attached to the ground, and you ended up taking something that was attached to the ground. Rabbi says, but if you intended to do an action, even though it was a permissible action, that would still be chayiv. That's not misasik. That's a shaygig. Shaygig is chayiv. Okay. Itmar. We're not done with this, but that's the basis of this discussion. We're going to give another few examples to the same machlekes Abaye and Rabba. Let's say someone intends to throw 2 amas in a Rishus Rabbim, which is not forbidden. But what happens is it ends up going 4 amas. He overthrows the what he wanted. Rav Amar Pater. Rabbi said, well, you didn't intend to do a malacha. You intended for an action, but not a forbidden action. Abaye Amar Chayiv. Abaye says, no, you intended even for that. You intended for the action. That's enough to make you chayiv. Even though it wasn't forbidden, but you intended for the same action. Rav Amar Pater, like a mechabel l'zrika d'arba. Rabbi says you didn't intend to throw 4 amas in Rishus Rabbim. Abaye Amar Chayiv, like a mechabel l'zrika balma. Abaye says, well, you intended to throw, and throwing is throwing. Kasavar Rishus Yachid v'nimtzer Rishus Rabbim. Let's say you're in this area, you think it's Rishus Yachid, so you carry there. Turns out it wasn't really Rishus Yachid; it was Rishus Rabbim. I don't know. It was an indoor mall. You thought it was someone's house. Wow, big house. Rav Amar Pater. Rav says that you're exempt because you didn't intend to carry in Rishus Rabbim. Abaye Amar Chayiv. Abaye says he's throwing it. Abaye says that that is chayiv. Rav Amar Pater, why the leikum chavim l'zrika d'isur? You didn't intend. You're throwing it. You're throwing it from, I guess, from Rishus Yachid into Rishus Rabbim, or maybe in Rishus Rabbim itself. But you thought it was Rishus Yachid, and you didn't intend for a forbidden action. Abaye Amar Chayiv, the kam chavim l'zrika balma. Abaye says no. You intended to throw, and that means you intended for the action. So you're chayiv. You didn't know that it's asur, so it's a shaygig. But you intended for the action. Utzricha. Now, really, all of these machlekes are the same point. So why do we have to repeat it? We got the idea the first time. So the Gemara explains. Because if you would tell me regarding cutting something that's attached to the ground, and when you thought it wasn't attached, but you still wanted to cut, over there, Rabbi says you're exempt because you didn't intend a forbidden cutting. But over here, when you intended to throw 2, but it ended up going 4, you couldn't get the 4 without the 2. So that you actually did have an intention for part of the malacha. That's different. Over here, you didn't intend at all to cut something that was attached to the ground. You didn't have any intent. Here, you wanted it to go to 2 amas, which is a chelik of the malacha. Turned out it went more. The 2 amas would have been pater, but you can't get 4 without 2. So this is a bigger chiddush. So Ema Maidle Labaya could say that when you intended to throw 4, you intended to throw 2 amas, that's a chelik of the malacha. And the fact is, it went a little further. And maybe Rava's Maidle Tabaya that you should be chayiv there. Yashmin and Baha. And if it would go, I'm sorry, you just confused me. Like this sign. if you would say, do not pass go. Yashmin and Baha, if it would say in the second case, which was he intended to throw 2 amas. You're thinking about do not collect $200. Intended to throw 2 amas. And this Rava says, he didn't intend to go 4. He intended to throw 4 amas. He just thought it was Rishus Yachid. So he actually had full intention for the action. Maybe he would agree to Abaye that he should be chayiv. So it's tzricha. It's necessary. Necessary to have each one of these cases to tell me that Rava holds pater nevertheless. Okay. Now it seems like we can't get away from this following Gemara, this comes back. This may be even the third time that it's coming back, and we'll still have it again. Tanan, it was taught in the Mishnah. Where's the Mishnah? Right here. Right, what we're going to learn later. Bezos Hashem. Obvious malachas are b'im chaser achas. There's 40 malachas minus 1. That means 39 malachas. V'avinan ban. We deliberated on that. We asked, what's going on? Minyan alamali. Why do you have to tell me the number? Rabbi Yochanan answers, Shemasan kulam be'al mechad chayav al kol achas v'achas. The number is important. The number is telling me that if you made a mistake, you forgot, or that all of those things were forbidden, you're chayav 39 chatais. According to Abaya, we can understand what's going on over here. He learns it in the following way. He knows that it's aser. He also knows that the malachas are aser. But he made a mistake about the measurements. That means Abaya says that Yechayev Achatas, if you intend to throw 2 amas, and it ends up going 4. So what his mistake over here is, he intended to do each of these malachas, but he intended to do less than the size. And it turns out everything he does is too much. He cut to let's say he intended to cut something that was separated. It turns out that it was attached. Or in the size of the shiurim of how much it was. It turned out that it was each malacha that he did was too much. Rabbi says that that's considered a shaygig, and he's going to be chayiv. So he knows Shabbos, even knows malachas. We have to get him to know Shabbos, or else he's going to be only chayiv 1 carbon. How's he going to be chayiv 39? Only if he doesn't know the malachas. So the way we posed this problem before, and the way we're posing it again now, this question is, we're saying, how does he know Shabbos if he doesn't know any of the malachas? What does he know about Shabbos? So according to Abai, it's very easy. He knows everything about Shabbos. He's just confusing the shiurim. He goes like Reb Chaim Na, and the halach is like the Chazon Ish. That's a joke. Whatever. So that's considered a shegig. L'Rava, but according to Rava, Damar Pater, that Rava says that he's exempt if he makes a mistake with the shiurim. How does he not know? How does he know the concept of Shabbos and not know any of the malachos? What does he know about Shabbos? Well, we had another option here. Rabbi Yochanan had an interesting opinion that says that if someone knows all of Hilchos Shabbos, but he doesn't know the severity of the laws, that it's kares, he's considered a shogeg. He says, well, he knows Shabbos very well. Rabbi Yochanan holds that if someone is a shogeg about the kares, he doesn't know that Shabbos incurs a kares, an excision, that he's cut off. He doesn't know that. It's considered a shogeg af b'shizid b'lav, even though he knows that it's all forbidden. Mishkachas ad Shabbos b'lav. It's very possible that he knows the concept of Shabbos, that all of these 39 malachas are prohibited, and nevertheless he's a shogeg, so he's chayev 39 chatos, 39 sin offerings. But if he holds like Reb Shimon ben Lakish, Damrad Shishkeg b'lav, v'kares, that a shogeg is only someone that doesn't know that it's prohibited, and he doesn't know that there's excision, that he's cut off. He doesn't know anything. So the Adlal Shabbos b'mai. What does he know about Shabbos that you're telling me he knows the concept of Shabbos? The Gemara says the Adlal b'tchumen v'ali b'Rabbi Akiva. The same answer that we gave before. Gemara just wanted to bring out, I guess, that when we have a machlekes Abai and Rava, the shogeg, the possibilities of shogeg, according to Rava, get much less. Like Rabbi Yochanan increases the amounts of shogeg because he says it's considered a shogeg if you don't know the severity. Abai increases the amount of shogeg if you don't know the size of the shear. That's also a shogeg. But Rava and Reish Lakish are both diminishing the possibilities of shogeg. Okay, we have a Mishnah. This is the center of Masechta Shabbos. In conceptually, and also it's about the middle of the Masech. But this is where we have the list of the 39 malachas. So there's a lot of details. We'll just do the translation, and then in the Gemara, it's going to elaborate each one what exactly how it's done. Basically, these are things that were done in the construction of the Mishkan, and these are the ones that are being counted as those principal malachas that are forbidden. Each one has told us. It says, "Avis malachas abayim chasarachas." The fathers of malachas, these are the principles of the malachas, are 40 minus 1. Hazireya, someone that sows grain, he plants seed in the ground. V'acherish, he plows the ground. V'akoitzer, then he harvests the grain. V'ma'amer, he bundles the grain. V'hadash, then he threshes the grain to remove the chaff from the separate the husks from the kernels. V'hazayra, Zaira is to winnow. You take the grain, you throw it into the air, and the wind blows away the lighter pieces, and you're left with the grain. V'habayrer, but then you have to remove the pebbles and pieces that didn't get blown away. That's separating. Teichen is then you take the nice clean grain and you grind it. V'marakid is then you sift it. V'halash, you mix it with water and you knead it. V'ha'if, and you bake it. Those are the first 11 malachas that are called Sidura de Pas. It's basically divided into categories, the malachas. First one is the process of making bread, starting from planting. The Gemara is going to ask, it really starts from plowing. Why does it switch it? We'll see in the Gemara. Okay, next is the process of making cloth. I think there's 13. Hagoiz is a tzemer. You have to cut the wool off you have to shear the wool from the sheep. B'malabnai, you have to clean it. You have to bleach it or wash it. B'manafte, then you have to comb out the wool. B'tzayve, then you dye it to the color. You only dye it after you comb it out, otherwise the dye won't go in properly. B'tayve, then you take these fibers and you spin them into string, into thread. B'hamesech. Okay, mesech is setting up the loom. If you haven't seen a loom, then this is going to be a little hard to conceptualize. But basically, in order to make cloth, you have to get a thread to go over one thread, under, over. So what you do is you set up I think it's called the warp threads. You set them up from post to post. And then you have to get this thread under, over, and then you just go back, under, over. Okay, that's, Mesech is setting up the loom. Sorry?
A loom.
A loom, setting up the loom.
Yeah.
Okay, now they figured out an easier way of going under, over. They figured out an easier way, a technical advantage, a mechanical advantage. What you do is, every other thread, you make what's called a heddle. You tie a little string to it, and you tie that string to a post, a bar, a little. So when you lift it up, I lift it up every, 3, 5, 7, 9. I lift up all the odd ones, and then I can just put the thread right through without going with my needle like this, and then pulling it. So they actually put the whole ball of yarn through, the whole ball of thread. It's called the shuttle. They throw it through, and then they have another set of heddles that for the even ones, that lift it up and then they throw it back. So all you have to do is, if you have like a foot pedal, you can go like this, and someone just keeps throwing back and forth, and that's a loom in the machine. So the Eiser Shtei Batinirim is you make two heddles, or either you make two heddles or you put two threads through the heddles. And this is when you start to do the weaving process, putting the cloth through. So the first two was setting up the loom. That's Mesech, is the warp. Batinirim is setting it up. The Eirig is actually the process of making the cloth. But pitzeya shtei chutim, apparently you have to take it out every once in a while. It didn't go right, you take it out. But hakosher v'amater, you have to sometimes tie a knot and untie. Why would you do this? It's possible that the thread ended, or different things, or maybe it tore in two places. You want to put in, instead of two knots in this cloth, which makes it really not look good. You take out one of them, and you can use a new thread or whatever. You can fill it in with the tying and untying, or you get it tied in the right places. You could switch it by the length of the thread. So you've already made cloth, but now what do you do with the cloth? Well, b'hatayfer shtei tfiros, you sew 2 stitches. You want to turn this into something useful. So now you take the cloth and you stitch it. Sometimes you have to tear in order to sew 2 stitches. Why? If there's a hole in the cloth, let's say it was made by a moth or something, so then if you sew it together, there's going to be a crease in the cloth because there's a round hole. So what you do is you cut a piece out, then you sew it together, and then you can get a nice clean seam. So you have to cut in order to sew. Hatzad tzvi, okay, now we're looking to make leather. So first you have to hunt down a deer. You have to trap a deer. Sheichte, you have to shecht it. Mafshite, then you skin it. Hamalchai is the beginning of the tanning process. You have to salt it. Ma'abed asayre, then there's other types of tanning things that you do to work the leather. Memachkai, you have to take the hair off one side. V'mechatchai is you have to cut it to the right size that you need. Hakoisif shtei oisius. Looks like we're making parchment here. Then you write on it 2 letters. Hamoichik anas lichter shtei oisius. You erase in order to write 2 letters. Okay, that's the process of making leather and parchment. Now we have a bainavas building and destroying, construction and deconstruction. Extinguishing and lighting. That seems to be out of order. Usually you have to light before you extinguish, but we'll see why. Hamakeh b'patish is the last bang of the hammer, which is either the last act that's done to finish the product, or when someone is finishing construction, so he bangs his hammer on is it called the anvil? On some sort of block that straightens out his hammer, because his hammer actually was getting out of shape, and you smack it down to make it flat. So that could also be the malacha. And finally, Amaitzim Rishus Lushus, carrying. All of these. This is the 49, the 39, the 40 minus 1, the 39 malachas. Okay. In all of those Gemaras that we had before.
What's the difference between Hamemachkai and Hamochik Malnaklich?
Yeah, Mochik is erase.
Right.
And Memachik is smoothing down the skin by either taking off the hairs on one side. So one's erasing, and these things are similar. There is some overlap and different things here that make it similar. But yeah, erasing is also smoothing down, but it's actually erasing letters. You only be chayav for mochik if there were actually letters there. The other one is memachik. That would apply to other things, to making things smooth. Okay. Minyan alamali. This is twice in one day. We have this Gemara. What do we need the number for? It's probably the 4th time this week. Well, it's very important. It's coming to tell me that if I do all of them and one forgetting, I'm chayav for each one. I'll be chayav 39 chatais. Statements from Rabbi Yochanan. Hazireh v'acherish. We said sowing, which means sowing the seed, planting the grain, and then plowing. The Gemara says michti. 1 second. Michrav karbi bereisha. You have to plow before you put the seed in. You don't put the seed in and then plow. Listen, you did that out of order. So the Gemara answers, Tana Beretz Yisrael Koi. The Tana is referring to Eretz Yisrael. The Zari Breisha Vada Karbi. apparently the land in Eretz Yisrael is so hard that after you put the seed in the ground, you can't just leave it there or push it back. You have to actually plow the soil back over the seed. You have to actually use a plow to get it back. Usually it's already softened and it will go back on its own, maybe with watering or whatever. But here you have to actually plow it back over. And so what we're learning is that plowing is also plowing. The second plowing is also considered plowing. Preparing the ground. That's the malacha. Tana was taught in a brisa, Hazireya, someone that plants seeds, grain. Hazaymer is pruning. This is improving the growth. Haneteya, someone that plants a tree. Mavrich. Mavrich is called layering. What layering does is that if you have a vine or if you have a young tree, you can actually bend the branch down, put it back into the ground, and take it up again. It will grow new roots from the ground. They do something, it's called ear layering, where they take a clod of dirt and they wrap it in like tinfoil or something. They put it on the tree, and they wait a few weeks or whatever, and they see roots growing out of that spot, and then they cut it off and they have a new tree. That's done in the ear. Here, it's mavrich was done in the ground. You bend it back into the, okay, so you're growing again. It's like planting. Markiv is grafting. Grafting is from the same species as mutter. Other species we don't do. That's kalayim. But if it's the same species. Kula malacha achasin, they're all considered one malacha. All the malacha of planting. My kamashman, what are you trying to tell me? We're coming to tell you something important. That if you do a bunch of malachas that are all under the same category, you only chayav one karban. Okay, so here you have 5 things that go under the same category. Amar Ravacha, Amar Abchia Barashi, Amar Rabami. Ravacha, or maybe it's supposed to be Rababa. It's the name of Abchia Barashi, the name of Rabami. Zaymer chayav mishum neiteya. He divides it up. There's actually 2 malachas here. There's the malacha of neiteya, that's planting trees. And then there's the malacha of planting grain. So zaymer, pruning, goes under neiteya. V'neiteya, v'mavrech, v'markev chay mishum zeireya. But someone that plants a tree and someone that layers, puts it back in the soil, v'markev, or he grafts, that's chayiv mishum zeireya for planting, for sowing seeds. Mishum Zereya and Mishum Neiteya. One second. That has a separate category. That's considered Neiteya. When it says Ema Af Mishum Zereya, it's chayev for both. And that means that it would still go under the same category if someone would do Mavrich. Someone would do Mavrich and Markiv, layering, and he would also do Zeireya, so it would all be considered one malacha. The shaila over here is, there's a difficult question which I don't know the answer to. What the Gemara just did to us is it says everything could go under Neiteya. Everything could go under Zeireya. All these 5 different types of promoting new growth. However, Neiteya and Zaymer are considered 2 avis. Neiteya and Zeireya are planting trees and sowing grain are considered 2 avis. It sounds like what the Gemara is telling me is that if I do Zeireya and Neiteya, then I'm chayav 2 chatayos. Everything else are told us. But these are 2 avis that are very similar. Now, what's throwing off the understanding here is Rabbi Yochanan started. We said, why do we need a number? If you do all these malachas, the most you'll be able to be chayiv ever is going to be 39. Well, I just learned a little further in the Gemara. It turns out that if I do Zeireya and Neiteya, I may get 40. And it doesn't fit with what Rabbi Yochanan was. All right. Anyway, whatever the case is, Zeireya is still considered an Av for the toldus of Neiteya. That's what we learned in this last thing. Zeireya, sowing grain, is still considered an Av. Okay, now we're up to Rav Kana. Rav Kana. Rav Kana says, Zaymer v'tzarech leitzim chayiv shtayim. Very interesting. Someone is pruning his tree, but he also needs the wood. So he's accomplishing two things here. First of all, he's going to have firewood. Well, collecting firewood is kaitzer. Well, and not collecting the firewood, but it's the cutting. The firewood is harvesting. You're cutting something off from the ground. That's something that you need. And the other issue is that you're promoting the growth of this tree. So that's a tolda of Zayreya. So Rav Kana says, Zaymer, pruning. B'tzarech leitzim, and you need the wood as well. Chayiv shtayim, achas mishum kaitzer v'achas mishum neiteya. You did two malachas with one act. You want the wood, so you harvested wood, and you also promoted the growth. You did pruning. Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says, Haiman the katal aspasta chayiv shtayim. Same thing would apply if someone cuts the straw. Apparently, the grain would grow 3 times.
Is Natea a tolda or an av?
We learned that Naiteya is going to be an av as well. That's what's throwing us off, because it wasn't in the Mishnah.
That's what I'm saying. It's not in the
Right. It wasn't in the Mishnah. But look at what he says. Amar Rab Ami, Zaymer chayev mishum Naiteya.
So where does he get that as an av? I mean, if the Mishnah doesn't bring it, I mean, this is
Yeah, he has another tradition.
different version.
That there's another av. But ultimately, it comes out that even though there's other avos, but all told us of that av will also be told us of Zayreya. And as if you do Zaymer, Markiv, and Mavrich together with Zayreya, you'll only be chayiv one. And the same as if you do them together with Naiteya. The only problem is Naiteya itself with Zayreya would be considered two avos, two separate avos. And that's what's throwing us off. I don't know. There's something funny over there. So cutting the grain, apparently they would cut the grain 3 times, and it would grow back, and then they would use it for straw, for animal fodder. So, but when you cut it, it grows again. So, you're planting. I don't know why it's called Neiteya. Neiteya, why is it Neiteya? I don't have the comments here, but I would think aspasta is, I thought it was grain that's being used for straw. I think that it would fit better, at least in my understanding, if it would say that it's chayiv mishum zayreya. Okay. I don't know. But the point is that you can do one action that's chayiv for 2 malachas, because you're gaining 2 things from this. Amar Abaya, Haiman the kun of silka. The same applies if someone cuts beets. Chayiv shtayim. Achas mishum kaitzer, achas mishum zayreya. Or Neiteya, this Bach changes it here. Okay, you cut it because it grows back. Maybe it's like the sugar beets. Maybe I don't know exactly, but they would cut it down and it would grow back. So you chayiv 2 things: one, because you're promoting the growth when you cut it down, and also because you're harvesting what you cut. V'hacherish, have a new piece. Should we leave this for tomorrow? Let me do one small piece. Acherish, plowing. Tana, we'll start in a brisa. Acherish v'achefer v'acheretz. Someone that plows, someone that digs, or someone that makes a scratch in the ground. Kula malacha, saying that's all considered one malacha. They're all told us of each other. Of cherish. Plowing, digging. Amar of Sheshis. Haisli gavshushis binatla. Someone has a little mound of dirt, and he takes it away. He removes it. But bias, if it's in his house, chayiv mishum baina, then that's considered construction, because he's flattening the floor of his house, which is improving his floor. Besada, but if he does that in the field, chayiv b'shem chayir, she's chayiv because of plowing. Why is he not chayiv for plowing in the house? Because if it's covered by the roof, it's very difficult to get things to grow. So that can't be promoting improving the soil for growth. It's only considered building. Amar Rava, let's say the opposite. Let's say he has a hole and he fills it in with dirt. Well, that's construction of the house if it's inside. But if you did the same thing and it's outside, then that's considered plowing because you're improving the soil, you're improving the ground for. Amar Rabbi, Rabbi says someone that digs a hole on Shabbos, but it's not because he wants to improve the ground. He dug a hole because he needs the dirt for something. He needs the dirt to cover over something that smells or whatever. He wants to use the dirt, so he's pater Allah, he's exempt. Even according to Rabbi Yehuda, that says that if you do a malacha, but your intention is not for what that malacha originally was. In other words, here, you're not doing it to improve the soil or to make your floor flat or something like that. You're digging this hole because you need the dirt. It's malacha shein tzrich legufa. And Rabbi Yehuda, it's machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. If you're chayav for malacha shein tzrich legufa, you did the action, but with the outcome of the action is not what that malacha is meant for. So, however, hani mili misakin, but hai mekalkalu. That's only if you're doing something that's fixing. But here you're digging a hole. That's not baina, and that's if it's in his house. It must be in his house. Yeah. If it would be outside, then that would be chayrish. But if it's inside, so a hole in your floor it doesn't do you any good. So therefore, it's mekalkal, and even according to Rabbi Yehuda, you'd be pater. Mekalkal means destroying instead of fixing. Okay, let's leave it over here. Shekayach.